Hello, fellow patriots, and welcome back to Red Rights and You, the only podcast where common sense meets the Constitution and we serve up truth hotter than Adam Schiff forced to wear a MAGA hat. I'm your host, Tim Andrews, broadcasting from the heartland, where the corn is tall, the values are traditional, and the liberals are, well, let's just say they're not on the guest list. Have you noticed how the left has been acting like a cat in a room full of rocking chairs ever since President Trump started making America great again? They're throwing tantrums over tariffs, crying foul over common sense immigration policies, and supporting protests that look more like anti-American parades than peaceful demonstrations. They're so desperate to derail Trump's agenda that they're siding with radicals, undermining our economy, and even attacking Doge. Yes, saving money, exposing waste and corruption, and being more efficient is Trump's new Nazi ploy to kill Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and the American dream. But fear not, patriots. We're here to cut through the noise, expose the hypocrisy, and remind everyone that the silent majority is neither silent nor in the minority. And joining me, as always, is the man who puts the right in Red Rights and You, my marvelous co-host, Mark Mosgrove. Mark, are you ready to dive into the liberal lunacy and set the record straight?
Sure thing. Let's do it.
Let's do it, man. First of all, I got a list here of the things that the left is sabotaging. And if I would have really gotten particular, the list could have consisted of 500 pages instead of a page and a half. But let's just tackle the main ones that are in the news. Let's talk first about the left using Trump's tariff policies to incite panic in the stock market, potentially leading to a recession. How do you feel about that?
Well, as far as the tariffs go, I think it's one of those deals where it fundamentally needed to be changed, but it's not something that happens in a day or a week. So it's like anything. If you want to get in shape, you're going to have some short-term pain in order to get the long-term gain. And of course, nowadays, we don't have the patience for that. And so the time to do it is right off the bat, because he'll have another year and a half to go before the midterms. But I understand why people are jittery, because it's change. And change at first can be bad. Uncertainty causes problems with the stock market. Although the last few days, the stock market's been going up.
Right.
But it's a long-term view. That whole system has to be reset, and that's not something that just happens in a day or two. And I think that the White House needs to be getting the message out that this is going to take some time.
I think maybe more specific details about trade deals. We're hearing 18, then we're hearing 200, and then we're hearing we've just got one maybe coming up with South Korea, and it makes people nervous. And there's one thing that both liberals and conservatives love, and that's their savings, their 401ks. So they're going to go after the places where we're most vulnerable. So they're creating that panic. And China, they're hopping on that train because they see what the Americans have done in the past. They drop everything and run away, and they're scared and sell, and they panic. And the Chinese know that. So it gave them a little bit of traction too. So every day that we go in with the stock market a little more stable or climbing slightly like it has been is a great day. Get away from that panic. And there'll be some bad days and then there'll be some good days. But once that good news does start coming in, especially if they reach an agreement with China, because once China sees that everybody's not just going to panic and sell, they'd love for that to happen too. That's a globalist economy. It helps people like Soros, China, and like I said before, who knows if they're even in cahoots. But I think that will stabilize the market. So that'll affect market and small businesses. And then as far as immigration, boy, this is something. The left's push for extended due process for illegal immigrants, many of whom, as we all know, have committed violent crimes and are overall horrible people, Let's look at the challenges and delays in deporting criminals due to the less liberal policies.
I saw last week somebody said that under the Obama administration, over 3 million people had been deported over that 8-year period. And then over the first Trump administration, I think it was little bit over 1 million. So actually, the Obama administration deported more people than Trump did and is doing now. But you didn't hear about it, of course, because it was Obama, and Obama walks on water. And Obama is their guy. But since it's the other guy, whatever Trump says or does, it's wrong. It's the opposite. If he said that he loves puppies, then all of a sudden the Democrats are going to hate puppies. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I can't believe it. There must have been how many millions or hundreds of thousands of trials to make sure that those deportees under Obama had their due process, right?
Yeah,
I must have missed them,
exactly.
though, because I didn't see any of them on the news or anything. Did you?
No. But I don't know if you want to get into our friend there from El Salvador or not.
Well, he's a big example, but now they've got another guy. They've moved on from the family man from Maryland. The bottom line is there is one objective, and that is to slow everything down as much as they can. And I think what they're trying to do is get to the midterms. But the problem is they're making themselves look so bad. They're counting on gaining more representatives, senators, and Congress people in the midterms, and they're shooting themselves in the foot. They're going to lose people. I think the midterms actually will help us when they're displaying this horrendous behavior and taking up 80-20, 90-10, 95-5 issues that most Americans are against. They're backing away from the guy from El Salvador, and now they've just made a due process. Well, you and I both know, Mark, those people all came in hot, not vetted, nothing, just open the doors and let them all run in. But now to get each one of them out of the country, we're going to have to put them in a courtroom and go through a 3, 4, 5-week trial. That's impossible. It would take decades to do something like that. And that's what they're counting on. So I think we can all agree that having those people in this country is not a good thing, especially these hardened criminals, rapists, murderers, drug dealers. But they're taking that side because they feel that delaying Trump's agenda is more important than the safety of citizens and getting those bad people out.
It's very fascinating to me that the Democrat Party, which is now for the rule of law, didn't seem to have any issues with laws being broken when people came here illegally. Let's remember, he broke the law coming here. He has every right to be deported. Now, I'm not an expert on this guy. What's his name? Kilmore, Rapo Garcia, or whatever his name is. I mean, could it legitimately be that this guy had a bad life in El Salvador, walked all through Mexico, came over the border to escape all that, and he's a great guy, and he's a family man, and he just happens to have tattoos that match the gang stuff. He just happens to wear the stuff. He just happens to associate with people who do that. And he happens to be driving people around in vehicles with the same address as him with no luggage, and he just happened to have domestic issues and everything like that. But like the Democrats say, he was never found guilty of anything. Well, actually, that is a bold-faced lie. He's guilty of one thing. He came to this country illegally. I'm no immigration expert, but I have been reading more about it. And the first item on the list of deportation is proper documentation. He should have been deported years ago. So it never should have happened in the first place. Yes, he's got a family and he's got children, but you know how many people are in jail right now? American citizens who have families with children or have wives.
Right.
He broke the law to be here. He should have been deported. Really, the hiccup with all this is the judge said don't send him back to El Salvador because of his fear of whatever. But they could have deported him. They could have deported him to Ukraine. They could have stuck him on the front line and said, there you go. But you sent him back to where they came from.
Right.
Maybe there was some problems with the paperwork, but El Salvador's not giving him up. They're holding him. If he was an innocent guy, why would he be in jail there?
And they know he's a gang member. And really, you brought it up earlier, but that's the one point I'd like to drive home that would get rid of all these questions with immigration. The only, and I mean the only disqualifier that the government should be held accountable for is if they send or try to send somebody or load somebody up on a plane who has a legal right to be here and came in the right way, and they are a citizen of the United States, or they have documentation that allows them to be here on a work visa or what have you. Whether they've killed 1,000 people and raped and murdered, or they're just here illegally, they need to go. And that's what Trump ran on. And he's trying to do the right thing and get the hardened criminals first, but people are giving him shit about that. So they're shooting themselves in the foot, because now he can go back and just start deporting people. There's different rules and things instead of that Aliens Act and foreign wars and whatever that is. Due process with all those people when they all have records. There was no due process coming in. They're here illegally. If they can't come up with the documentation, see ya. But moving along, let's talk about Doge real quick. The left's criticism of Doge and using vandalism to go after Elon Musk, keying the Teslas, setting fires at the dealerships.
There's a lot of people out there that think that's why Elon Musk is backing off, when all along he only had 130 days to do the task.
Right.
And nobody expected that he was going to be working it full time. He still says he's going to be doing a day a week, but he has the ability to help the government and not be working it 24/7, because they've got people there working in its place.
Well, here's the thing with the attacks on Tesla. They tell people Elon's the devil, Elon's a Nazi, Elon's this, Elon's that. He's taken time away from his companies, taking all that money to try and make our economy better, cut waste, criminality, theft, people that are just taking up space and not working, and doing everything that he can to make this government more efficient. And they call him Nazi and everything else. Well, the problem is, I'm probably being conservative, but 999 out of every 1,000 whack job, mentally ill, insane people in this country are on the left. And they hear stuff like that and they think, oh, let's just go do it. It's okay. Our leadership says to do it. Here's the problem. One word that should trump everything, pun intended, I guess, but accountability. That side has completely ignored the fact that when you do things that are against the law, or you do things that hurt other people, you need to be held accountable. And it's because of all these things in the past. It started with the George Floyd Black Lives Matters thing. They think they can set fire to things and destroy property and steal stuff and kill people, like the kid that killed the pharmaceuticals guy. They can just do anything they want, and they don't need to be held accountable because they think it's wrong. Well, that's why they have laws, and that's why they have punishment and penalties, to stop people from doing that kind of bullshit. And now that they're arresting people and they're going away for 20 years and they're crying like babies, why can't I go in and destroy 50 cars and set fire to a dealership and not be punished? I'm just making a statement. Yeah, you're making a statement. You're an asshole and you need to go away. And once they start sending them away, isn't it funny how the incidents have gone down? Because now people are thinking twice before they're doing that kind of stuff. But it won't stop them. They'll just go and do it somewhere else with something else at a protest or what have you.
Well, you know darn well that these people that are doing the vandalism, that if somebody did that to them because they're a Democrat, they'd be outraged, they'd be upset. These people that are doing this vandalism, let's just say a Democrat in general, we got people across the street who are hardcore Democrats, and that's fine. But I can't go over there and spray paint their house. If I did, they'd be outraged and they'd call the police and have me arrested. Why is it that these people think they have the moral superiority that they can do harm to others and property, but since they have the moral superiority, it's okay? That is screwed up thinking. Absolutely screwed up thinking. And I have had people to my face say that president of the insurance company, he deserved it and he had it coming.
Right.
I've had people to my face say that, and my mouth just like dropped.
There's nothing wrong with being appalled. I don't like a lot of things insurance companies do.
Yeah.
I'm appalled by it too. But he got his education. He worked his way through the ranks. He's just working there. He is not the insurance company. Maybe it's something that he has a passion for, and maybe he's trying to make a difference. You just don't kill somebody because you disagree with a policy, just like they tried to kill Trump. And I blame the conservatives a little bit, because if it was the Dems and the liberals and the coin was flipped, there'd already be all these congressmen in jail and senators in jail and all this shit with Doge, and they'd be investigating and everybody'd be going to court and there'd be impeachments, because they are just snakes in the grass. They go after everybody and everything. But the Republicans, like somebody asked me the other day, where's the Epstein files? Where are they? Where is all this stuff? Well, there's either one of two things, because we know nobody's hands are completely clean in government. So either they're trying to protect some conservatives, Republicans that are on that list, and I don't think it's Trump, or they're holding it over people's heads and saying, look, we've got these files, and if you don't toe the line and do this, they're going to come to light. Or maybe both. But we get in there, drain the swamp, and I know it's only been 100 days, and maybe my expectations are too high, but they need to start dropping the hammer on these people. That's another big thing that we all elected President Trump to do, was to get in there and drain the swamp and clean up that government. Heads need to start rolling, because they're pulling no punches. They don't care. They're lying, they're cheating, they're scratching, they're doing whatever they can to save themselves and to demean anything that Trump's trying to do. But we're just, let's just go through and we'll get to it eventually. We need to be a little bit more, let's get it done. You do what the people want us to do. They're all sick of corrupt government too. Aren't you all? You're all sick of it, right?
Exactly. Well, the silver lining about Kilmore, what's his name? Garcia, and talking about him for the last 2 weeks is they're not talking about Doge.
Right.
So let them talk about the Maryland Father of the Year, and let Doge do its job and get the government under control. Now, I have not gone to the Doge website in about 2 weeks, but I was checking it to see what they were doing. And I need to be a little bit more on top of that, just for my own curiosity, and also so I can not sound totally stupid. I have my facts. But over the last 2 weeks, you haven't heard about what Doge has cut. Maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, we're here to have some fun and talk like a couple of guys. We're not political scientists, as you guys have probably already guessed. But no. I think we're fairly intelligent people that like to keep up with the news and see what's going on. And we like to discuss politics and basically how we feel on a conservative level. You think that's fair? From our perspective.
From our sphere and from our point of view, being two people who were raised where we were raised, by the parents who we had, our upbringings, our experiences. Everybody's experiences are different.
That's exactly right. We're not experts, but we do have opinions and we do follow politics. The opinions expressed on this podcast are for entertainment and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the rest of the country.
The opinions expressed on this podcast don't necessarily reflect the views of the people who are doing the podcast.
They only reflect ours and 99.9% of conservative Republicans in the United States.
Yeah.
But let's
we are not.
Right. As you might have already guessed. Way to go, Sherlock.
Newsflash.
So let's go through a couple other things. We're running short on time, but a couple of the other things that they're blocking and doing everything they can to stop, in the 80 or 90-10, 95-5 issues like this one, allowing biological men to compete in women's sports and the impact on female athletes, locker rooms, Title IX protections that we've all been fighting for all this time. Now, all of a sudden, it's okay for men to just go into women's sports and watch young girls dress. That's ridiculous. the campus protests and anti-Semitism. And again, our buddy George Soros, we found out, is the one having these signs printed up, and they're all in unison. And they start at precisely 8 o'clock and ended at precisely 10 o'clock. So the people are punching in and out, paying people, flying people to protest.
And like the next town over, they have their protest that springs up.
Yeah.
Exactly a half hour for lunch, and then
yeah, right. Hey, that guy looks familiar. Wasn't he just over in the next town? He looks
Yeah.
awfully, maybe that's his twin brother, right?
Yeah.
But foreign policy and national interests, like the military support for Ukraine amidst calls for peace negotiations. It's a shame what's happening now with the peace negotiations and Putin and hitting Ukraine even harder and trying to gain leverage. But it's even worse when you're throwing more money, and what you're doing is just enabling and keeping the war going longer and longer. So they may have more equipment. It just means that not only are you losing thousands of people a week, but Russia's losing thousands of people a week too. Lives are lives, whether the Ukrainian lives or
Right.
Russian lives. More young people are being killed.
And let's be fair. The Russian lives who are being lost, I can guarantee you there's a big percentage of those soldiers that don't want to be there.
Nope. They sure don't. It's a tough war. It's almost like our Vietnam, and it's a shame.
But the difference is with Vietnam, people that objected could go move to Canada. In Russia, if you object, you're probably
Right.
going to end up dead.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But Trump is Hitler, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm going to sidestep you a little bit. This whole Trump is Hitler thing is ridiculous because all the people out there that keep saying Trump is Hitler, if Trump was Hitler, they would be arrested and shot at the firing squad. Anybody who said anything bad about him would be arrested and rounded up and put in jail or killed. It's absurd. Even Bill Maher said, can we quit with the Nazi symbolism? I mean, he's Jewish. It's disrespectful for the people who did lose their lives.
Right, and their families.
From the Holocaust and the survivors and their families. To compare a president of the United States who you don't agree with to a person like that. Like even Bill Maher said, and I used to not agree with him on anything, but what's strange is Bill Maher is starting to now kind of be the voice of reason, which who would have thought? Hitler was in his own category. Hitler murdered people. Trump has beliefs that's different. He's not Hitler. I mean, that's absurd.
He's the opposite because he sided with the Jewish people all throughout both terms, and he's supported them forever. The Abraham Accords. Now he's trying to build on that. And Netanyahu said he's never had a better friend than Donald Trump. That doesn't sound like Hitler to me. He's behind him 1,000%. If anybody was Hitler in that situation, I wouldn't even say that because Hitler knew who he was Joe Biden, just ignoring things and backing Palestine and Hamas.
Hitler, he had a woman that he loved. He had a wife. He loved children. They had pictures with him with children. He probably loved puppies too. So I guess he was a nice guy. I mean, it's just messed up thinking.
And eliminating the Department of Education, of course, they're fighting that because they want to have that stranglehold on education and teachers and curriculum where they can control what your children are learning and how they're learning it. First grade, second grade, as soon as kids can read, they're reading about the prince and the soldier or whatever it is, learning more about homosexuality. So they don't want to lose that. And the fact that all that money's pouring in and we're the worst in the world with education, where other countries are far superior, doing more with a lot less money or directing the money in different places. And then opposing tax cuts. That's a big one for me too. Opposing all these bills and tax cuts because they say it's only for the rich. Well, the biggest tax cut that we ever got in history was under Trump's first term. Unfortunately, there's a sunset clause where it goes away on January 1, 2026. And that's part of the big, beautiful bill, along with no taxes on tips, no taxes on Social Security. What's the other one? No taxes. Yeah, there's another one. But there's overtime. Yeah. The bottom line is they're fighting those things tooth and nail, no matter how beneficial. Somebody said to me, name one thing Trump ever did. And I mentioned that, and crickets. Hey, how long ago was it? It wasn't that long ago, and people have completely forgotten. Oh, it's just for billionaires. That's a complete line of bullshit. People, it was for everybody. And now what they're going to do, and mark my words, just like everything else they get their hands into and they throw a wrench into the cog, everything else they screw up and make worse, they're going to turn around and blame it on Trump for the midterms. That's the only chance they think they have. Because now, if this thing doesn't go through in 2026, all those taxes are going to go up, and we're going to have the largest tax hike because that's going to expire. Now we're going to be paying 20% more. And do you think the Democrats are going to say, well, we didn't want the tax cuts to be permanent, so we voted it down? Or do you think they're going to be standing up in a chair and go, oh, he said he's going to cut your taxes? Well, look, we just had the largest tax increase in the history of the United States. And they're going to do that with everything, every little thing that they're screwing up and that they're going against. They're going to figure out a way to try and twist it around and blame it on the Republican Party, and in particular, Donald Trump.
I agree. Oh, they have no ideas.
No.
Nothing.
And then you got David Hogg. These people now, they want to get rid of the moderates and the older people. But what they want to replace it with is something that the American people hate even worse, and that's socialism and progressivism and all this kind of stuff, like AOC and all these young people are running on. They're socialists. You think people want this to be a socialist country? It's amazing that they can get away with it. So there you have it. Those are just some of the things that these guys are getting their hands in and trying to screw with and mess things up for the country and all the rest of us. And they hate Trump so much that they're going against common sense policies. Fight your battles and give the guy a chance to fail. If you think the tariffs are bad, and if he goes through 2 years or a year and the tariffs are harmful or when they're hurting us, now you got a battle to fight. But you got to give the guy a chance to either succeed or fail. And then you can judge the person. Don't judge somebody on the very first 100 days, even though he's done more things to help this country and turn it around in 100 days than most people do in 4 or 8 years. But they're not used to that. They're used to politicians coming in and just, oh, yeah, I said, what were my campaign promises again? I don't even remember what they are. But you know what? I think I'll go to the French Riviera next week. Trump gets in trouble for golfing on Sundays while he's probably still working the whole time he's on the golf course. Yet these guys can take vacation after vacation. Everybody is using the office, not just the presidency, but of Congress and Senate to benefit themselves. They don't go in there because they want to help people. They go in there because they want to help themselves, line their pockets, be millionaires, be in the pockets of big pharma and everybody else that's given all these contributions. That's how they're all getting rich. It's not a big secret. We've all known it for years. We've just let it go on. Oh, yeah, that's just part of government, because they would not be going in working for the salaries they do. So very few exceptions.
We need term limits.
Term limits, absolutely. And we need oversight. We need more oversight to make sure these kind of things aren't going on. Now, what's the argument? Maybe you don't have as many people that want to be a congressman or a senator, and you make it attractive, and maybe even give them a little bit of a pay raise. Maybe $178,000 a year, whatever it is, isn't enough for that job. But even if you gave them a little bit of a pay bump to keep them from accepting all those bribes, and then you have oversight and don't let all that happen. Because as conservative and Republican as we are, we're not stupid. When that kind of money is being thrown in your face, it's happening on both sides of the aisle. If you look through it, a lot of Democrats are more susceptible to it for one reason or another. You have to investigate it. But that's another reason they're not investigating those things and jumping in right away, because there's going to be some collateral damage. Some conservatives are going to bite it too. They're going to go down too. But as Americans, not as Republicans, not as Democrats, not as liberal or conservative, we shouldn't care whether it's Republican or Democrat. If they're stealing from the American people and they're skimming money off the top, that's wrong. Just like these judges that got arrested for harboring illegals. What's wrong is wrong. And of course, the Democrats have always said it. Nobody's above the law. Nobody's above the law. That's been their mantra, unless they're a liberal or a Democrat. Nobody, I guess, is a conservative, but somebody is a liberal. So they're above the law. But all right, ran over. Mark, thanks again for being with me, man. I hope you guys all had some fun, and we welcome your comments, your shares, your likes, subscriptions. We're doing really extremely well. We haven't even been around for a year. We're coming up on 2,000 subscribers, which we're really proud of. And we enjoy talking with you guys and going over subjects and social media and all those kind of things. So if you have comments or want to get involved, or even if you want to get involved in a podcast, either by watching it, asking questions, we'll probably be doing some lives, come on board. But until then, be strong. Stay the course. And stay patriotic. Mark, thanks a lot, buddy.
Thank you. God bless America.
God bless you all. God bless America. Have a great one. Bye-bye.